My sound okay? Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll get started in just a moment here. Going to give everyone a few more seconds to filter in. All right, and I will get us started. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us for our Learning Libby with the Experts webinar series. Today is our first day where we will be talking about getting started with the library reading app Libby and taking you through all of the steps you need to know to enjoy Libby in your day-to-day life. Now, before we get started, we should probably introduce ourselves. My name is Joe, and I'm here from Overdrive. You may be familiar with the Overdrive app. You might have even used it in the past, or at the very least, you might have heard of us. We are the makers of Libby, and we wanted to, start to share all of this wonderful getting started info as we are retiring our legacy Overdrive app and moving all in with Libby. So we're so excited to be here today and to share just a little bit more about how you can get started. Now, at Overdrive, I'm a part of the digital bookmobile team. So when we're not staying safe at home, we have a truck that goes across the US and Canada, helping different people just like yourselves get started. I'm here with the other half of the team today.
Hello, my name is Marissa. As Joe said, I'm the other half of the digital bookmobile team. I always joke around and give him a hard time saying that his job is the worst of the two of our jobs. He has the bad half, which is all of the desk work, sitting back in Cleveland where Overdrive is headquartered and kind of managing our budget, planning our tour route and things like that. Whereas I have the good, exciting half of the job, which is traveling with our digital bookmobile and helping people learn how to use Libby. So in my 3 years at Overdrive, I've helped thousands of people learn how to use the Libby app, whether it's the basics, which we go over today, or those tips and tricks that we're going to share later in the week. So we are really excited to be here today.
Yes, we are so glad to be here today. And like Marissa said, sometimes I do have to do the boring stuff. So let me just take you through some housekeeping really quick. Closed captions are enabled for this webinar, and you should be seeing them already up on your screen. If you need to adjust those at all, turn them off, change the format, look for the button that says CC in your Zoom meeting controls and tap the arrow next to it to make your adjustments. You can ask Marissa and I questions throughout the entire webinar. Also in your meeting controls, you'll find the Q&A button. Tap on that, type out your question, and one of us will answer it as soon as we're able. I'll be answering questions while Marissa is presenting throughout. You'll get text replies in that Q&A box, but we'll also save some of these to highlight at the end when we have about 10 or so minutes left to just kind of cover any questions you might have or to go over any questions that were asked throughout the presentation. Now, if you need to step away, if a distraction pops up, if you want to see something again, no worries. We are recording our session and you'll get a copy of this recording tomorrow morning around this time. So keep your eyes open for an email from Zoom. It might also look like it's from me. It might say it's from Joe Skelly or from Zoom. Zoom, sometimes makes it looks like I'm sending out personalized recordings to you all, but it's from Zoom. So just look out for that. It'll have a link inside that is for the full presentation we're about to do, as well as a link to our Getting Started PDF. So that will include short video clips of everything we're covering. So if you just need to see one thing again, you don't have to hunt through the full recording. And of course, you are more than welcome to share these videos with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. Now, since we are giving you these recordings to review, we don't want anyone to get lost while we're presenting. So we recommend you just watch us as we go through the different portions of the app and don't try to follow along. Just, absorb it all, ask your questions as they pop up. Help us improve by filling out our survey. It will pop up in your browser when we end the webinar. And lastly, Marissa and I will be connecting our iPads into the session this morning. Sometimes when we do this, Zoom shrinks the display on your end. Doesn't happen to everyone, but if it happens to you and you can't see our full screen, we'll have some simple instructions in the chat. It's just a few clicks to help you resolve that. It's no big deal if it happens. I just want you to be aware of it. And Marissa will call that out when she gets connected as well. All right, that is all the boring stuff. So let me take a second here and get connected into the webinar. So I am just going to start sharing my iPad. And as I mentioned, we're both using iPads this morning, but the Libby app can be downloaded on a variety of devices. So if you're an Apple mobile user, you use an iPhone or an iPad. Or if you're an Android mobile user, there are so many different brands of Android tablets and smartphones, but right there, they're your typical smartphones, tablets, think Samsung, Google Pixel, anything like that. You'll go into your app store to download the app. If you're using a computer, you're just going to go to libbyapp.com. There is no program or app to download. If it's Windows or Mac, you're just going to libbyapp.com. Now, the really cool thing about Libby, whether you're using the app on a smartphone or a tablet, or you're using libbyapp.com in a browser, it's going to look almost exactly the same across all different devices. So let's go ahead and download that app so we can dive in. So if you're downloading the app, you'll head into your App Store, the blue App Store icon for Apple, the Google Play Store for Android. Once you're in, just look for your search bar, and we're going to type in Libby. Now, I tend to ignore search suggestions and just hit search or enter in my keyboard, because when I do this, Libby is going to be one of the top results that pops up. And we're looking for this maroon app icon right here, and it says Libby by Overdrive next to it. Now, the Libby app is completely free to download and use, so just look for either get or install on your screen and tap that to start downloading the free app. Keep your App Store password handy just in case your device settings require you to enter it to download free apps. Once Libby's all downloaded, we'll leave the App Store and we'll go ahead and open up that freshly downloaded Libby app. Now, when we open Libby for the very first time, she has a few questions for us to help us find our library and get signed in with our library card. You only need to do these steps the first time you set up a device, and then going forward, Libby will remember your info so you can dive right back into whatever you were reading or listening. So our first question here, do you have a library card? I'll say yes. And now we are going to find our library location. When you're setting up your first device, you're going to use this search for a library. And if you only have one device, you're going to use Libby on, that'll be the end of it. If you are, like me, and you plan to use Libby on your smartphone and your tablet and maybe even your computer, you'll get your first one set up with search for a library, which we're about to go through. But just as something to keep in your back pocket for later, when you're setting up that second or third or however many devices, you can use copy from another device to speed up the process on any additional devices you're syncing. So just remember that if you decide to set up a second device. For now, we'll tap on search for a library and we'll wrap up our first setup. Now I'm going to come up here. I love this option because I can just type in my zip code. And there we go. We're getting our results here. Now, Marissa and I are virtually visiting you at Mount Pleasant Free Public Library today. We can see the address here, and you might be joining us from a different branch today. But what's most important, what we're looking for, is this name up top. It's part of the Westmoreland eBook Network. So whether this is your physical location you go to, doesn't matter so much because you'll all belong to this virtual location up top, Westmoreland. So I'll tap that to choose it. And now we're almost done. We're just going to tap on sign in with my card. And then all you need to do from here is type in your library card number. Now your card number is going to appear on the card, usually under a barcode. And let's see if I can do this. Okay, so enter your number only, no dashes, no spaces. And tap on sign in. And there we go. I typed in all those numbers right while I was still talking and looking around, and I can see my card has appeared here on the screen. So now I know I can place a hold on up to 10 ebooks or audiobooks, and I can check out up to 10 ebooks or audiobooks. Now I'm going to tap on next, and now I have access to my library's complete collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and extras, all at the Westmoreland Digital Collection. This is where I get to hand it over to Marissa now that we're wrapped up with the download and sign-in steps. She's going to get connected here and take us through those basics, everything we need to know for our day-to-day life in Libby. Marissa is using a demo library from Overdrive this morning, so you are going to see a different logo on her screen, and you may see different collections, but the way everything works, all the buttons, everything she's showing you how to do are exactly the same. So Marissa, I'll hand it over to you, and if y'all have any questions, I'll be hanging out in the Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Joe, for showing us how to download and sign in. And as Joe said, I'm gonna show you all of the basics. So before I get started doing that, I want to give one last shout out and call out to changing your zoom ratio. This is where it matters the most. So right now I have a navigation bar at the bottom of my screen. It has 5 icons within it: search, library, menu, shelf, and timeline. If you do not see those icons and labels in that navigation bar at the bottom of my screen, then Joe did just put out the instructions for how to change your zoom ratio. It'll make it so that you can see my entire screen and follow along with me so much easier as I navigate throughout our demonstration today. So I'm going to give you a couple seconds to do that. And it really does just take a couple of seconds. It's very, very fast. And we will go ahead and get started talking about those icons in the navigation bar. I will talk about all of them at some point in the presentation, but we're going to start out with the second icon. It looks like a little library building. It says library underneath. And the library icon is what you're going to tap on when you want to browse your library's entire collection of ebooks, audiobooks, and magazines. Now, you're going to hear me say browse a lot when I talk about the library icon. And the reason why is because I want you to think of that library icon just as you would if you were to walk into the physical library, not knowing exactly what you're looking for. So you're browsing around their shelves and seeing if something sparks your interest or catches your eye. So while we browse around the library page here, up at the top of the page, there are some filters that you can use. These are a really great place to start browsing. You could tap on Just Added to see a list of the new ebooks and audiobooks and magazines that are at your library. Available Now is a really great place to go if you want a book in a hurry, if you don't have time to wait on the waiting list. So you're at the doctor's office waiting for your doctor to come in. They're taking a while, so you can just borrow a book really fast. Maybe you're about to hop in the car on a road trip. You could borrow an audiobook really quickly. This is going to be a list of books that currently don't have a wait list. So really good for moments like those. Lastly, we have subjects. This is probably the most popular way to browse for a book. If you're someone who likes to stick to certain subjects or genres, maybe you love mysteries, maybe historical fiction, things like that, you could tap into subjects and then you could browse by that particular subject if you'd like. So those filters are a great place to start when you're browsing that library page, but you can always scroll down as well and you'll come across a section here that is labeled guides. Now, guides do differ from library to library. So your guides aren't going to look exactly like mine do. Each library gets to choose which ones are displayed at their library's collection. You do have a kids and teens guide. These are going to be places where you could go to find books that fit into those age groups. You'll find curated collections geared towards kids or teens. You also have an available now guide. Again, another great place to go if you want to find something to borrow right away. And you have a mystery thriller guide. That's likely the most popular genre or subject at your library, so they wanted to make it really easy to find. You can tap on mystery and thriller, and you'll be presented with book lists that involve that subject or genre. So in addition to those filters, the guides are also a great place to go. And then as you make your way down the page, you're going to start to see general curated collections that your library puts together for you. Now, these curated collections are just like if you were to walk into the physical library and in the summer you see an end cap that's displaying, beach reads. And then you go back in the winter and that end cap switches over to holiday recipes or some cozy mysteries. And so these curated collections that you see on the library page, they're going to rotate throughout the year, just like you see at your physical library. They always want to show us something fresh and new and come up with these creative lists to spark interests. So like I said, you'll hear me say browse a lot when I talk about that library icon, because that's where you go when you don't know exactly what you're looking for and you just want to browse around to see what the library has. In the instances where you do know exactly what you're looking for, that's when you're going to go over to the search icon instead. It's that very first icon within the navigation bar. It looks like a little magnifying glass and it says search underneath. And here is where you can type in a specific title. You could type in a specific author, a magazine, or a series name as well. So I'm going to go ahead and search for a book called The Plot. And then I'm going to tap on search or enter in my device's keyboard. And you'll see that now I'm presented with a list. And The Plot, the book that I was looking for, has appeared right up at the top. So this is what a list is going to look like. A list is when you jump into a filter, when you search for something, or when you're looking at one of those curated collections. So all of those will look like this. There are a couple things I want to point out here for you that will be helpful to know when you're getting started with Libby. The first is going to be how you can tell the difference between an ebook and an audiobook. So I explain the difference here because libraries do purchase those formats separately. So they buy ebooks and they buy audiobooks. And that means you can't borrow an audiobook and then decide, oh, I actually wanted to read this and just like switch it into an ebook. You have to return it back to the library and then borrow the ebook version. So when you're on the lookout for an audiobook, you're going to look for a square jacket cover. And then right underneath, you'll also see a set of headphones and the duration of the audiobook as well. So those are going to be 3 visual indicators to know that's a book that you listen to. For an ebook, one that you're going to read with your eyes, you'll look for a rectangular jacket cover. So in its shape, it's more similar to a physical book would be. It's going to be that rectangular shape. So that's how you know that's going to be a book that you read. The second thing I want to point out is the difference between books that are available to borrow right away and books that you'll have to join a waiting list for. So the audiobook version of The Plot here, we can see that it says place hold right next to that jacket cover. And that means there's currently a waiting list. So someone's reading every copy that the library owns. And to join the waiting list, all you have to do is tap on place hold. That takes you to the details page. So you'll get to, or sorry, not the details page, the confirmation page. There we go. So at the bottom, we'll see approximately how long this title is going to take to get to us. And we can tap on this big maroon button here to confirm that we want to place the hold. So once we get that confirmation, we can come down and choose what we'd like to do next in Libby. Typically, if I'm placing holds, that means I haven't found the book that I want to read right now. So I'm going to go ahead and tap on Keep Browsing, which takes you right back to the list that you were last looking at. So it took me back to those search results for the plot. I can see that the audiobook version is on my hold shelf with about a 2-week wait. Now, if a book is available to borrow, you'll see a borrow button right next to that jacket cover. And if you knew exactly what this book was about and you're ready to borrow it, you can tap on borrow right here next to the jacket cover. Maybe a friend recommended this, you're not sure what the book is about yet, so you want a little more detail before you borrow it. You can tap on the jacket cover itself, and that takes you to the details page. We're finally there. I tried to jump the gun a little bit early. So here's that details page. We can find out what the book is about first. And then if we decide we do want to borrow it, that friend gave us a good recommendation. We can tap borrow right here underneath the jacket cover on this page. Now, once you tap on borrow, you'll be taken to the confirmation page. Right here, you'll see that we are borrowing the plot for 14 days. 14 days is the default lending period at your library. But you can switch this over to 21 days if you'd like. You just tap on that 14-day button there and then switch it over to 21. Now, you'll have to do this once for ebooks, once for audiobooks, and once for magazines. And then moving forward, Libby will remember your chosen lending period, and that will become your default lending period moving forward. So Libby will remember that for you. It won't be too much of a hassle. And titles return automatically on their due date. So you never have to worry about late fees. Once you have determined you'd like to confirm that you can borrow the book, you can tap on borrow, that big maroon button. And this brings you to the borrowing final confirmation page here. So we're downloading the book for offline use. As soon as you get this little library card with the check mark on it, that means the title has been downloaded for offline use, and you can take it anywhere you'd like. You could take your device up in a plane on airplane mode or out in the middle of the woods without any cell service, and you'll still be able to access your reading materials and enjoy them. So now I'm going to go ahead and tap on Open Book. And the final thing Libby will ask before we open the title is, where would we like to read the book? So for ebooks, you have two choices. You have the Kindle option. If you have a Kindle that you prefer to read on, like a Kindle Paperwhite, for example, you can choose Kindle here. This will prompt you to sign into your Amazon account, so make sure you have those credentials ready. And then you will have a button that says Get Library Book to send it over to that Kindle device. Now, I do not do this process live because it requires me to sign into my Kindle account, but I do have a video in the PDF that you'll receive tomorrow if you would like to see that process. So I didn't leave you hanging. You'll just have to wait a day. Today here live, I'm going to walk through the Libby process. This is if you want to read directly in the Libby app. I have a few key reading features that I'd like to show off here. So when you first open a book, you'll have menus up at the top and the bottom of the screen. Libby is counting our pages here, but when she's done, we'll see we're on page 1 of 514. To make those menus go away so that we can start reading, all you have to do is a quick tap of the finger right in the center of the screen, and those menus will disappear. Then you can quickly tap or swipe or click if you're using libbyapp.com to page forward. Now I'm going to get to a big chunk of text here. There we go. Because I want to show you how you can customize your reading appearance to meet your own individual needs here. This is one of the reasons I love digital reading so much, so we can make these books work for us instead of the other way around. So what I'm going to do is a quick tap of the finger in the center of the screen. That brings my menus back up. And then up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see an A icon. That A stands for appearance. So anytime you want to change your appearance, that is what you can tap on to bring up your appearance menu. There are 3 things that you can customize in your appearance menu. The first is the text scale, or the size of the font. So we can use this slider here to increase or decrease our font size. We'll go a little smaller there. There we go. Next, we have lighting. So this is going to be the background color of the page of the book. I'm currently in bright mode. That is Libby's default. There's a sepia, and then there's also this dark mode that is really nice for reading at night if you don't want that bright screen in your eyes. And then last but not least, we have book design. So book design is Libby's fancy way of saying font style. So this is the font style that the text is in. I always like to point out this open dyslexic font style because it may help some users with dyslexia while reading. So we can change our font size, our background lighting, and our font style with the book design. Those are the 3 ways you can customize your reading appearance. These settings are sticky, and that means as soon as you customize your text scale, your lighting, and your font style, moving forward, Libby is going to remember those settings for you, and books will be delivered to you with those settings in place. So you won't have to keep coming back in here and making those adjustments. All right, I am going to drop this menu out of the way. I'm just going to tap above it, and that drops off the screen. And then let's go ahead and we're going to leave this ebook and pop into an audiobook. So I'm going to do a quick tap of the finger in the center of the screen. That brings up our menus. And then up in the top left-hand corner this time, we see that back button. This back button is how you leave your ebooks, your audiobooks, and your magazines. So same button for all of them. You just tap on back, and that leaves that book for you. So that has taken me over to the shelf. And I think this is a good time for us to reorient ourselves, review what we've covered already, and then reorient for moving forward. So let me take a sip of water. I'm gonna give you a second here to let things settle in. All right, so I'm gonna head down to the bottom of the screen here. The first thing I wanna point out is this bar across the right-hand side. This is Libby's Now Reading bar. It's Libby's way of giving you easy access to the very last book that you had open. So I was looking at the plot with you. It's giving us easy access. I'm just gonna dismiss this for now so that we can see the full navigation bar. And let's review the 2 icons that we have gone over so far. First, we went to the library to browse for a book on their shelves. We had the filters up at the top, like the available now, or the subjects filters. We also had the guides. Those were the kids and teens guides. We had the available now and then mystery thriller guides as well. And then we had the curated collections that the library puts together for us, kind of like those displays at the physical library. So again, we browse at the library. Then we went over to the search icon, and that's where we searched for something specific. So we knew the author, the title, the magazine or series name, and we looked for that exact title. We're now over on the shelf. So that's the fourth icon that you see in the navigation bar. It looks like a little stack of books there. Your shelf is where you're going to find your current loans and your current holds. So these are books that you're actively borrowing from the library, you're within your lending period and you're reading them, or you're actively on the waiting list. You're waiting for your turn to read that book. So up on the top of our shelf, we have some filters here. If we want to specifically look at our loans or specifically look at our holds, we can do that. Tags are something I talk about in the deep dive. That's one of our tips and tricks. So if you want to hear about those, then you should join us for that. Joe will send out a link for registration. And then on the main page of the shelf here, we just have all of our loans organized by the last time we opened them. So we can see the book I just opened with you showing right up here at the top. And then as I scroll down, I have some other books and magazines that I've borrowed earlier in the week. I'm going to open up this audiobook here. I have a couple things I want to point out in our audiobooks. So first is where you can find the reading progress, which is up at the top of the player. I'm about 13% of the way through. We even have timestamps for how far into and how much you have left to go. Down at the bottom of the screen, we have the player. So if you are ready to begin listening, you can tap on play and that narrator will start talking. Now, I can hear Matthew McConaughey's voice here on my end, but you should only be able to hear me, sadly. But one thing that I want to point out for you is that audiobooks are designed in Libby to play in the background of your device. And so what that means is you can come into Libby, tap on play, and then you could minimize the Libby app on your screen and open up some online shopping or the news if you'd like. Or you could put your device to your screen to sleep on your device and start gardening or doing dishes, and you'll still be able to listen to your audiobook at the same time. You'll be able to multitask. Now, with that in mind, something I want to warn you about is when you are done listening to your audiobook for that time being, you come back into Libby and tap on pause. That pause button acts as the stop button. So the narrator will stop talking, and then you don't have to worry about losing your place. I've caught a few people on the digital bookmobile just turning their volume down, thinking, if I don't hear the book, then it must not be playing. And that's not the case in Libby, because we want you to be able to multitask if you'd like. So come in, tap on pause, stop that narrator, and you'll be good to go. You won't lose your place. Two last features I'll point out before we leave our audiobooks is the playback speed. This little speedometer up here will control how fast that narrator is talking. So right now I have the narrator sped up just a little bit, but we do have some presets here for you. And this slider will allow you to fine tune from almost half the speed if you want to slow it down, or up to 3 times the speed as well. So some options if you want to change how quickly or slowly that narrator is speaking. And then lastly, we have this crescent moon, this second icon that you see there in the top right-hand corner. This is a sleep timer. So this will pause your audiobook according to what time you set. So again, some presets here. End of chapter is really quite nice if you're laying in bed and you just want to finish the end of the chapter before you fall asleep. And then there's, again, another fine-tuned slider that goes from 5 minutes all the way up to 120 minutes. So you have some options for pausing that playback so it doesn't keep playing into the night. Had to rewind and find a spot a couple of times before that feature became available. All right, I'm going to come up to the top in the left-hand corner here, and that back button I talked about earlier is going to allow us to leave this audiobook. And then that took me back to the shelf here, and this is a good time to reorient again. So I'm going to come down to the bottom of the screen, and I'll point out the now reading bar has switched over to that audiobook, and that's because it's always the very last book that you opened in Libby. I'm going to dismiss that again here so we can see that full navigation bar. While the shelf is your current loans and your current holds, your timeline right next door is all of your history throughout the Libby app. So this is going to be every loan or hold, renewal or return that you've ever had in the Libby app. So I want to differentiate those icons for you. I want to make it really clear that your shelf is current. You have those books borrowed from the library right now, or you're waiting on the wait list. And so you can read them or will be able to read them soon, whereas your timeline is your history. Those are the books that you've read, everything that you've ever done in the Libby app. We will finish off the getting started demonstration in the menu. That's the very center of that navigation bar. It looks like 3 little lines there, and it says menu underneath. And you can think of the menu as your account settings, if you will. So up at the top of our menu here, you'll see I have a little notification. They're letting me know my library has added another issue of a magazine. Thank you, Libby. I'm going to dismiss this. I'm like taking my finger and I'm just swiping it across the page. And you'll see that that notification left the screen, and now I can manage my notifications instead. Managing your notifications is how you can customize how you receive important messages from Libby. Now, Libby is going to bring you this menu here, the Manage Notification menu, the very first time you place a hold. So she'll make it a little easier on you to find than I had to do. But I just want to show you what that's going to look like and some important things to consider. Up at the top, we have the 3 ways that you can be notified. By default, Libby will have everything set to this blue notification line here. This is a push notification. Push notifications appear on your device's screen regardless of what app you have open. So you could be reading the news, browsing Facebook, online shopping, checking out the weather, and if a notification comes through, it's going to appear on your device's screen no matter what. Just like a text message would, you can think of it a little bit like that. Right below that, we have the option for a menu badge. A menu badge is an in-app notification. That means you aren't going to see it unless you open Libby up. It's going to appear inside the Libby app. The little indicators is that tiny little dot that you see next to my menu icon is the first indication. And then once I tapped on that menu, we had that little box that said my new issue of a magazine appeared. That is going to be the in-app notification option. I swiped it to dismiss it. So you do have to open up Libby to see that one. Of course, if there's something that you don't want to receive a notification for, you can ignore it as well. Now, right underneath those 3 ways you can be notified are all of the things that you can be notified about. And I'm going to take a second here to talk about the hold ready notification. I really recommend, especially for new users as you start to get used to using Libby, to keep your notification set to that push notification option that appears outside of the app as well for hold ready. And the reason why is because when it's your turn on a waiting list, Libby is going to give you a 3-day period to take action. During that 3-day period, the book's just going to be sitting in limbo, and you're the only person who can take action on it. Within that 3-day period, you can borrow the hold, cancel the hold, or you can deliver the hold later if you don't have time for it and you want to deliver it, you want Libby to deliver it again in a couple of weeks. When you do have time with it, you'll stay at the top of the wait list and let people skip over you in line. Now, in that 3-day period, if you don't take one of those 3 actions, then Libby will automatically deliver the title later one time as a courtesy. You'll get a second 3-day period at that time. And if the second 3-day period you don't take action again, Libby's going to cancel your hold. So she's given you 6 days at that point. She's going to cancel your hold, and you'll have to go and rejoin the wait list if you'd like that book. So speaking from experience, it can really ruin your day if you wait, 6 weeks for a book that you were excited about and you miss those alerts to let you know it's your turn to borrow. So I just want to make sure that you are getting those. Okay, I'll climb down off that hill. I know I rant about it a little bit, but I just think it's really important for you to know. And I'm going to come over and tap on back here. That's going to take us back to that main Libby menu. Here's that in-app notification again that I was showing you as an example. Right under that, we see your libraries. So you can see in Libby, I have 2 library cards attached to my account from 2 different demo libraries. I have Digital Bookmobile and My Digital. Now, you can add additional library cards from other libraries in your area if you have a valid library card to that library and that library uses Libby services. So the benefit of adding additional libraries is that some libraries buy books that others don't. Some buy more copies of popular books than others as well. So you can do some comparing and contrasting between them. In Cleveland, Kyle, I called Joe my husband's name. Joe and I have access to our city library, our county library, and our state library. So all of those with our single address. That might be an option for you as well. You can also add additional library cards from the same library. This is especially important for anyone who might have kids who will fight over their loans and holds. You can add everyone in the family's library card if you want to make sure that everyone's being able to take advantage of the loan and hold limit. Lastly, we have help and support. So there are a couple things I want to point out in this help and support section. The first is this settings button down here at the bottom. This will allow you to find a couple different things. You can find your code to copy all of your library cards over from another device. We have some great accessibility features, and you can also manage your notifications here. I'm going to scroll down to find customized navigation. I want to show you something within this menu. Within your customized navigation, you can turn on the labels for your navigation bar. So you can see here, I have mine toggled on. That's why we can see the labels underneath our icons within the navigation bar. By default, Libby has these toggled off. And so I want to make sure that you know how to turn these on, especially as new users. I think it can be helpful to know exactly what each of those icons are. So come in here and turn those on, and that way you'll have a little easier time navigating. I do have a video in the PDF on how to do this. So if you remembered most of the stuff from this webinar, but you wanted to walk through how to turn on those icons, you can click on that 30-second video in the PDF instead of finding this part of the recording. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back one more time, and we'll talk about getting some help. So there are a couple different ways you can get help with Libby. First and foremost, we have about 15 minutes left of our session today. Joe and I can answer any questions that you have. Again, we're going to be doing a tips and tricks session later in the week. If you want to play around with Libby and come back then, you can ask us questions then as well. Even if it's about getting started, we're happy to help. You can always ask your library. They are a wonderful resource as well. So they might have a tech class or someone who can help you with any questions there. And then there are two ways that you can ask for help directly in the Libby app. The first is by tapping on this Get Some Help button and asking Libby, the computer. So this is like a self-guided help because you're asking the computer, and then Libby is just searching our help site to bring up relevant articles that are on there using the keywords that you used. So let's say I want to learn how to return a title early. I'm just going to type in return and then search. And here Libby goes giving me articles that are somewhat relevant. So this is the most relevant, returning books. I'll tap on that. And here we can see she gives me a heads up that titles return automatically, but then also gives me the directions for how to return a title manually back to the library. Now, if you have a more complex question, or maybe you need some troubleshooting help, you are having trouble downloading a book, you can come down to the bottom here. It says, ask our support team. And this is going to connect you with real life people. They're living and breathing. They are a very friendly group of folks. And you can say you have a problem, a question, or you can give an idea for the app. And this is going to connect you with those Overdrive technical support specialists. They typically get back to you within 24 hours and will get you back up and running or your questions answered. And that wraps up all of those need to know details about Libby. So I'm going to hand things back over to Joe here, and he's going to get us into some next steps.
Well, thanks, Marissa, and thank you all. Just a few things as we wind down for our time together today. Remember, you still have a little less than 15 minutes left with us, so ask us any questions you like. You can even ask those anonymously if that makes you more comfortable. We will make sure we get all of your questions answered before we end the webinar. We're going to test your knowledge in just a moment here. If you don't have questions for us, we do have some for you. Stick around for our mini quiz. And then join us on Thursday this week for our deep dive session, where we'll share 4 of our favorite tips and tricks. And as Marissa mentioned, this is also a wonderful time if you want to play around with Libby and come back and ask us your questions live that day as well. I'm just going to put the registration link in the chat one more time. Excuse me. And that way, if you haven't registered yet, you can do that. If you're unable to make the session live and you'd like to receive the recording, feel free to still register and you'll get the recording whether or not you're able to attend. All right, I've got all of those notes out of the way. So I am just going to go into our mini quiz here. The questions will appear on your screen automatically. They are completely anonymous. Just give them your best answer. If you don't know the answer, you can either guess or there is an unsure option available. And then we'll wrap up with answering any questions you have or showing anything off live directly within Libby. So please ask any questions you might have or anything you'd like to see. All right, question number 1. In the navigation bar, what do you tap to browse your library's collection? Keyword here is browse. Are we going to the magnifying glass, library, menu, stack of books, or clock? You don't know exactly what you want. You're just browsing around for your next great read. And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So when you don't know exactly what book you're looking for and you just kind of want to find something, maybe it fits your favorite subject to read, or you're looking for an author you like, or you just want to trust the librarians, just like you go to the physical library to find a new book, you're going to go to the library button. You can use the filters up at the top. You could see things like what's recently been added or available now. You could hop into the different guides your library has curated for you, like kids or teens if you're looking for a younger book for your kiddos at home. Or you could hop into any of these different curated lists. These are just like the different displays that the librarians make inside the physical building. Now, when you know exactly what you're looking for, you know the title, author, series name, anything like that, that's when you're going to go to the magnifying glass and type it in there. So just general browsing, that's the library. Something specific, that's your magnifying glass. All right. For question number 2, we're still going to be in the navigation bar. What do you tap to find your current loans and holds? So same answers as before: magnifying glass, library, menu, stack of books, or clock. Where does everything you're currently borrowing or currently on the holds list for live? And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, excellent work, everyone. Y'all got that entirely, completely correct. Crushed it. So your current loans and holds live on your shelf. Just tap on that stack of books to get there. Just like we saw on the library page, there are also filters if you want to see just your loans or just your holds. Come join us on Thursday to talk about tags. And if you scroll through the main shelf page, you'll see everything you're currently borrowing, from most recent to oldest. If you have any holds that are available, they will appear right at the top so you don't miss them. For question number 3, let's dive into an ebook. What are the 3 ways you can customize your ebook's appearance? So select all that apply. You can change the text scale or the size of the font, the lighting or the background color of the page, the book design or the font the book is presented in, or language, the language the book is written in. So let us know. And I'll close this in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right. So great job. There are 3 ways you can customize the appearance of your ebook. So let's tap in the center of the screen and open up that appearance menu. The first thing we can change is the size of the font under text scale, make it whatever you need it to be for your eyes. Then you can change the background color of the page. Bright is the default, but then there's also the dark mode that's under lighting. And then last, you can change the book design or the font the book is written in. We have 5 pre-made fonts, including the font the book was published in and our open dyslexic font, but there's also a custom option available. If you answered language, that's a great answer. Your library may offer books in a variety of different languages, but just like how you have to decide if you want an ebook or an audiobook and you can't switch once you borrow you can't borrow the ebook and say, "Oh, make this audio." You can't borrow a book in German and say, "Make this English." So one of the great tips that Marissa will be providing on Thursday is how to set filters across the app so you're only seeing the languages you want to read in. And our last question here for the day: how can you visually tell if a title is an audiobook while browsing? So, does it have a smaller jacket cover? There's a headphone icon under it. The runtime is under the jacket cover, or all of the above. How can you visually tell if a title is an audiobook while you're just browsing around? Sorry, had a sneeze sneak up on me there. Didn't want to sneeze right in your ears. And I will close this in 3, 2, 1. And you got it correct. Y'all really took everything away from Marissa today. I'm so happy to see it. Love all of these correct answers in the mini quiz. When you're scrolling, those audiobooks are going to have that kind of smaller square jacket cover, and underneath you'll see both the headphone icon and how long the audiobook will play for, whereas your ebooks are just going to be rectangular jacket covers. They look like a normal book. Excuse me. And with that, we are at the end of our presentation for the day. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A now, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. But just before we do that, I just wanted to remind everyone, tomorrow you'll get an email from Zoom that includes a link to the full recording of this presentation. You're more than welcome to review it as much as you like. It expires after 6 months. Or of course, you can share it with family and friends, anyone who you think would benefit from meeting Libby. Also included in that email will be a link to our Getting Started with Libby PDF that includes short video clips of everything we covered in the basics portion of the morning. So if you just need to see one little piece again, you don't have to scrub through the whole video. And now we will just take a moment here to see if any questions pop up. Marissa, anything you wanted to shout out?
No, I hope that you take the next couple of days and get acquainted with Libby, and then you come back to our tips and tricks session. We really give a lot of really great information about how to find books faster, some tips for navigating throughout your library's collection, and really narrowing lists down so that you can find a good book. We also talk about tags. So that's going to be like making lists in Libby, whether it's a wish list or maybe a list of narrators that you don't really love. That's something that I do as well. And then we'll also talk about making notes and highlights in ebooks. So really great information for book clubbers or students. So definitely join us for our tips and tricks session. You'll learn a lot.
A great point there, Marissa. And yeah, I love that there's a few days in between this session and the next one. So if you do have questions while you're playing around with Libby, you can use that time with us as well, either to ask, at the end, once we've wrapped up our tips and tricks, or if you just have a few quick questions throughout, I will happily answer them while Marissa is presenting. So definitely make some good use of that. And we hope to see you then. It looks like we don't have any questions coming through, so just going to give you a few minutes back to your morning, but thank you all so much for joining us today. And most importantly, happy reading.
Happy reading.